Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, A Couple Vibes. Sorry for not having too many posts lately. We're going through Ramadan, so we're fasting, and work's been hectic, so we've been kind of MIA for a little bit. But tomorrow we are having family over for iftar, so today we're kind of doing some prep work. So part of the menu for tomorrow is nahari. So if you don't know what nihari is, it's essentially a Pakistani beef stew with spices. And yeah, beef stew with spices, that's probably the closest thing. It's a curry. But yeah, so it does take a long time because it does use some of like the more tougher pieces of meat. So it does take a while to cook down, and it's one of those dishes that get better as it sits and the longer it cooks, and then the next day if you heat it up, it just gets better over time as the spices start to develop in flavor. So that's why I'm starting the day before. So by tomorrow, when everyone comes, it should be pretty good. So let's get into it. I'll show you what I've done so far. I'm sorry I didn't do step by step. It was just kind of a rush job. Let's just get this started. But yeah, I'll show you what I've done. All right, so here, sorry, the fog is the steam's in there. So in here I have some beef chunks, some bones. Sorry, it's gonna fog up, and some onions. I use ghee instead of oil, so we do have a whole tub of Krishna ghee. Sorry, it's still foggy.
Compliments and all.
Yep. So we have this whole tub. So I'm like, we have it. Let's use it. So I used that. I fried up onions. I took the onions out, and then I put the ghee in. And then as the ghee was melting, I put in the beef and then the bones. And then I topped it off with one of actually the spices I use is this Nahari Shan masala. I mean, I know it's kind of cheating, but it's not because it has all the spices you need in one box. It has instructions on the back, but I don't follow it to a T. Like this one says only beef. Let me see if I can get closer. It says beef, bones, onion, flour, cooking oil, and Shan masala. I actually use what I do use is I do use the Shan masala, but I'll use onions. I made my own ginger garlic paste, and then threw those in there. And then the next step I have is I have to top it off with water once the oil separates from the spices. And so for that, let me take you to where that is. So here I have just like a little bowl of water, but what I didn't mix in there, I don't have it out on the counter. It's better than bouillon. It's a little tub of it's bouillon essentially, but it's better than bouillon. It's like a beef base that just has a lot of beef flavoring. So I mixed that in with the water, and I'm gonna throw this on top of the pot. And then once that gets in there, I'm gonna cover it, put it on low, and let it cook for 6 hours. That's usually, and then so after 6 hours, I'm gonna come back, throw some a slurry of flour and water to thicken it up, and then I'm gonna cover it back again. I might actually do the flour and the water tomorrow, and then put it back on the stove tomorrow and let it cook a little bit more. So the flour and water slurry might go in tomorrow, but for today, once I get the that better than bouillon water mix in here and put the top on and let it cook for 6 hours, and then tomorrow we'll come back and finish it off.
And that's actually the difference between curry and nahari is the flour, because you wouldn't create a flour slurry for regular beef curry.
So flour is used to thicken it up, so you can think of it as cornstarch, but traditionally they use flour in Pakistan and to thicken it up, so that's why I like to use flour. I think flour is a little, it adds a little bit of flavor as well. Cornstarch is kind of bland too. You can kind of think of it as kind of a reverse, what do they call it? You know, when you mix your roux, it's like a reverse roux. When you have your butter and your flour, it's just the flour goes on at the end to thicken it up. But yeah, like I said, the beef in here, I don't know if I mentioned it. I used beef, usually use shank meat. So the shank meat comes from, you know, the shank of the cow, and it comes with big bones and marrow bones, and it's a very fatty meat, and it does really good with the long cook. But for this one, the store did not have beef shank, so I instead got chuck, and then boneless beef shank. I think it was beef shank. or maybe it was brisket. I think it was actually brisket. I think you can use brisket. So it was like both. It was a chuck?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe it was chuck. But yeah, so I got that, and they did have some beef bones on the side, so I threw those in there as well. But you traditionally you're supposed to use beef shank, but this time we had chuck. It's gonna taste the same. Chuck I kind of like a little bit better because the meat's fattier than shank, but shank is what we traditionally use. Is that it? I think that's it. So I'm gonna let this cook down. I think it's coming time to where I need to put the water in. So we'll see what we do next.
And if you guys want the recipe or ingredients, let us know and I can list it.
Yep. All right, so we're back. I did cover it with water. That bowl wasn't enough. I think I did two more rounds of that bowl to actually cover all the meat. You want to cover it so that way like the tops don't burn. But yeah, this is now waiting for it to come to a boil, and then I'm gonna lower it and then let it just stew for 6 hours. But so this is that better than bouillon. So you can tell, say it's premium, better than bouillon, roasted beef base. So like this will add some umami and more beef flavor to the nahari. You could just use water. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what most people will do. I just, since I'm cooking for people, I kind of wanted to like oomph it up a little bit, so I had to do that better than bouillon. But you don't have to use this.
Okay guys, so I am actually going to be making a tres leches cake. I found the recipe on Tony's Recipes. She has a TikTok page, but she also has a blog page, sorry, so if you want to look it up, it's on tonysrecipes.com. And here are the ingredients so far to make the cake. I have baking powder. It's going to make whole milk, eggs. You're actually going to need 5 eggs for this recipe. I know eggs are a little bit scarce right now, but you will need 5 eggs for this recipe. And then salt, some all-purpose flour, and then you'll need sugar. And she has you separate the sugar into 2 different sets because you're going to need it for 2 different parts of the cake. If you're not familiar with tres leche cake, it's also called milk cake because you use 3 different kinds of milk. And so there's kind of 3 steps to the cake. You have the actual cake, you have the milk that you're going to pour into the cake, and then you have the whipped topping on top with fruit. So there's 3 steps that I'm going to take to make this cake, and I'll walk you through as I do them. Okay, so I went ahead and separated 5 egg yolks from the egg white. And then I'm going to go ahead and pour in 3/4 cup of sugar and beat it till it's smooth. After I put in the sugar and beat it till it's smooth, I'm going to go ahead and pour in the milk and vanilla into the recipe. So you're supposed to beat the eggs and sugar until you get a pale yellow. Now I am using I think it's free-ranged eggs, so the egg yolks are really yellow. So this is as light as I think I'm going to get it, but you just want to kind of make sure that it's mixed in well, like the eggs and the sugar. And then after this, I'm going to go ahead and add in my milk and vanilla. I'm supposed to pour that in slowly as I mix. I am supposed to use 1/2 cup of whole milk and then 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And just pour them in slowly. And then once that mixture gets mixed in properly, then I start to add in my flour, salt, and baking powder. And she just has a disclaimer where she says, be careful not to overmix. This is for the cake, so you can use a store-bought cake mix if you want. I just wanted to make the whole cake, so I am making the actual yellow cake for the recipe, but you can use a box cake as well. So this is what I'm left with. I mixed in the whole milk and the vanilla. I'm actually using this really nice vanilla extract. I don't know if you can see it. We actually got this on the cruise, our last cruise. So it's really good vanilla. But that's what I'm using in here. And then I'm going to go ahead and make my flour mixture, and I'll show you what I do with that. All right, so I sifted my 1.5 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 2 teaspoons of baking soda. And then she says to pour it in the egg mixture, and I'm supposed to mix. Okay guys, so the next step is for me to beat the egg whites and sugar until I get fluffy white peaks. It's gonna take a little while, If you've ever done anything like this, it usually takes it a while to get the fluffy white peaks. It just looks like points in it, and if you like hold the bowl upside down, it shouldn't leak out. And then once I do that, I'm supposed to fold it into my other mixture until it becomes like light yellow, and then just put it in the pan and bake it. So I will show you what it looks like once I fold it in. Okay guys, so we beat the eggs. I got a little bit of help from Dan because it does take a while. So we beat the eggs, they are stiff. We did lift it over our heads, didn't fall out. So now I'm gonna pour it in. Gonna go ahead and fold it in. You don't want to do too much, but you want it to become pale yellow.
Yeah, you want to keep the air, otherwise
So
it'll deflate.
I will come back to you guys once I have it folded in.
All right, so this is the kind of color we're looking for. As you can see, it's a pale yellow. That's exactly what the recipe called for. So I think now you just have to pour this in to a baking dish. I'm just gonna use a tinfoil tray. Usually when you get tres leches, it's in a tinfoil tray. So keeping it authentic. And so I think once it goes in there, it has to go in the oven.
350.
And so the oven, I guess, is 350 for...
I think it's 15 to 20 minutes. Nope, 30 to 35 minutes.
All right, so 30 to 35 minutes. So that goes in here, and then this goes in there for 30 to 35 minutes at 350 degrees. Just know that every oven is different, so when you're following recipes and they give you timings in the oven, take that as like a guidance. Everyone knows their oven and how it performs, so adjust accordingly depending on the oven you have and whether it's hotter or not. So just a little advice there.
All right, so my cake is done baking. It took about 32 minutes. I technically try to go in between the time they tell me, usually on recipes. She said between 30 and 35, so I just hit, you know what, I'll go in the middle. So I did 32 minutes. But that's the finished product. I poked a few holes in just to see if it was done, and it is baked all the way through. So then the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to let it cool, and then when it's cool, I will go ahead and make my milk mixture, and I'll show you that's where the tres leches comes in because it's 3 different kinds of milk. So I will go ahead and show you the milk mixture next. All right, so my cake is cooled, and I went ahead and made my milk mixture. So it was 1 can of evaporated milk, 1 can of condensed milk, and then I think it was 3/4 cup of whole milk. You can also use oat milk instead if you prefer, or almond milk. I think oat milk is a little bit creamier, so it might be better with oat milk, but you can use your milks of choice. I've even heard of people substituting coconut milk to make it more vegetarian or vegan. But this is what I did. So I'm going to go ahead and whisk this in, and then you poke holes in your cake. Once you poke the holes, then you go ahead and just pour in your milk mixture, and then you just store it in the fridge overnight. And then tomorrow, I will go ahead and make the whipped topping with my strawberries. All right, and this is what we're working with. You can see the milk. I poured in all that, and at first it was puddled above it, but it's already soaking in. Just waiting for the last bit of the top to soak in. And yeah, it's gonna cool overnight, and it's gonna be nice and juicy. It is a soggy cake, so if you're not into that kind of thing, that's why it's called milk cake. But so it does come out really kind of soggy because it soaks up all the milk, but it is delicious if you've never tried it.
Hey everybody, good morning. It is officially the next day. So today's Saturday. Sorry if I look a little, I just woke up. But yeah, so I did put the nahari in the fridge. It cooked for probably 6 hours yesterday. I had to let it cool so that I could get it into the fridge without, damaging anything. It does need a little bit more. The meat is still tough, but it's the next day. People aren't coming till 6, so right now I think it is 9:30. So I put it back on the stove. I took it out of the fridge, put it on the stove, brought it to a boil, and then put it back down to simmer. And so this is what it's looking like right now. So that's where we're at. So I do need to put in my flour in here, my flour water slurry. And I have that here. All right, so once again, it's a slurry. So you don't want to mix flour